This is the third video in a four-part series explaining industrial demand management. In the first two videos, you learned the basic concepts of industrial demand management and common demand management strategies. In the final two videos in this series, we'll discuss demand management planning, which includes developing a plan to identify the most appropriate demand management opportunities in your facility, and communication and response plans to ensure the opportunities are successfully realized. We'll also follow the example of a cement plant that used demand management planning to overcome barriers to energy savings. Identifying demand management opportunities is a four-step process that involves analyzing your facility and operations to identify the mix of opportunities available to reduce demand. The four steps are understanding your demand profile, understanding what drives demand, understanding operations, and identifying and assessing opportunities. Throughout the planning process, it's important to remember that even facilities with inflexible operations usually have some curtailment opportunities, even if only in some areas or parts of the process. By using the four-step framework, you may find that you have the flexibility in your facility to take advantage of curtailment opportunities. The first step is to ensure you understand your demand profile. Your electrical demand profile shows the variation in electricity usage over time, reflecting the peaks, valleys, and overall consumption patterns of your buildings, facilities, and equipment. You can use these data to understand patterns in your electricity demand and how they coincide with peak periods. The second step in the process is to understand exactly what's driving demand. By understanding how different equipment impacts overall demand, you can identify opportunities to reduce consumption during peak times, optimize equipment usage, and implement the strategies discussed in the second video in this series. This involves developing an inventory of the equipment in your facility, along with its electrical demand, duty cycle, and operating time. This inventory should explain most, if not all, of the demand seen in your demand profile. The third step in the framework is to ensure you understand your operational criteria. This can involve reviewing how, when, and why your equipment and facilities are currently set up and operated the way they are. You need to consider how the various components of your facility fit together and the interdependencies of your operations. Consider variables such as the operating parameters that must be maintained, such as temperature or time sensitivity, startup and shutdown procedures, or other requirements. The goal is to develop an understanding of which parts of your operation are inflexible and which parts can be shifted or curtailed. The final step is to use the data collected in the previous steps to identify and assess demand management opportunities. The key point to remember when working to identify opportunities is to keep a flexible approach in mind. Your initial analysis may not reveal obvious opportunities for demand management, but with a flexible approach and some creative thinking, opportunities to reduce demand can often be discovered. For example, you might consider some out-of-the-box options, such as shifting some operations to the morning or evening to avoid predicted peak periods, or pre-cooling certain areas to reduce cooling demand during peak hours. You can also selectively change the scheduling of specific equipment or operations. The entire facility does not need to be shut down, but you should be able to target areas that offer the best opportunities for demand management. If you have significant inflexible loads, you may need to consider on-site generation or batteries to reduce demand. As a case study, a cement plant wanted to reduce demand during peak periods. Following the four-step process, they first examined their load profile, which was fairly flat, reflecting their 24/7 operations. They then conducted a load inventory and found that the kiln, crushers, and mixers were the largest contributors to demand. They looked at their operations and realized that while the kiln had to run 24/7 and required a steady stream of material, the crushers and ball mills had some spare capacity. Initially, the planners felt that they could not adjust plant operations to take advantage of demand management. But a more flexible view of plant operations allowed them to see that the crushers and mills were often running below capacity, They realized that by running the crushers and ball mills at higher capacity during off-peak periods to stockpile enough material for the kiln to use during peak periods, the crushers and mills could be shut down during those high-demand periods. As a result of this more flexible approach, real savings were achieved by turning off or reducing a significant portion of the plant's energy-intensive equipment during off-peak periods. In the final video, we'll look at the communication and response plans needed to ensure that the opportunities identified are successfully implemented.